Welcome to the Filmmaker Mixer podcast, the podcast by filmmakers for filmmakers.
This episode is sponsored by Gemini Crown Tech, software for all of your production needs. Stay tuned for more information later in the show. Hello, everybody. This is the Filmmaker Mixer podcast, and today we are chatting with writer and producer Suzanne Weinert about her new Texas thriller, The Eighth Day. Susan, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
It's a great film. So I guess I know Alexandra already chatted a little bit about it when I had her on the show, but just give us the rundown again in case people haven't seen that show. Tell us what The Eighth Day is about.
It's set in 1994 in West Texas, and it's about two kind of small time thugs from Chicago who show up in a Texas town with a name on a piece of paper. And they are instructed to get $150,000 back from this person on this piece of paper. And when they arrive in town, the person is not who they thought it was. And they basically have to stay in this town for 8 days in order to get the money that they need. And it's just all the chaos that they wreak on this town while they're there for 8 days.
It's kind of a throwback. It reminded me a lot of one of my favorite films, John Dahl movie, Red Rock West. You know,
Yes.
I like those types of thrillers, those sweaty Texas, everything goes wrong kind of movies.
It was inspired by that movie because I wrote it years ago. That was a huge inspiration, and Devil in a Blue Dress, the Carl Franklin movie. Yeah.
So you wrote that a while back then?
Yeah, like I was still in film school, and I remember we had taken a class called No Budget Production, and it was taught by Ira Deutschman, who went on to run Fine Line. And
Ira's a great guy.
Yeah, and it was, and James Schamus.
Yep.
One of them taught the class, but the point was how you would make a feature film for $100,000. So the original draft has lots of parking lots and, things like that. And then, we tried to make it, a bunch of us in film school back then, and it just didn't happen. And so I put it in a drawer, and every couple of years I'd take it out and I'd update it. And then like cell phones became popular, and I changed times and locations and just people's names. Like it's probably gone through 25 drafts over the years. And then Alex said to me, she was looking for something to direct that was manageable. And, did I have anything? And I pulled it out of the drawer for like the 50th time. And we had an investor, or I had met with an investor who was a big fan of it and had been wanting us to make it for a while. And so we just decided, all right, let's just go and do it. And we got it in right before the strike.
Wow, that's cool.
Yeah.
Well, it just goes to show that a good story, it can always resonate. A lot of times, you write these scripts. We have a lot of filmmakers. They're like, I wrote this script, and I'm not trying to get it made, and this and that and the other. But you shouldn't get discouraged, because you never know that a good story good stories rise to the top. It's a good thing.
And also, film is so collaborative, and so sometimes you'll have 2 of 3 very important pieces. And some days you have none, and then one day all of a sudden it's like click, click, click. I met Alex years ago. Before she moved to Austin, I met her. She was the executive director of the Mammoth Film Festival, and I was on the board. And so I've known her now probably like 7 or 8 years. And it just like one day she just happened to say, I'm ready to direct my first feature. And like it all just came together.
And you're like, just so happens I have a script.
Well, I was like, well, I have this thing. And, in the time from when I first wrote it until she was reading it, like there had been drafts that were set in that present day, whatever it was at the time, like 2008, 2009.
Right.
And so like there were more cell phones and things. And then it just, for these kinds of movies are about like the secret, if you will. It's just so much easier when there aren't cell phones or, Google, like it's very easy now to find somebody.
Yeah.
You don't just show up in a town with a name on a piece of paper.
Right.
So, but yeah, it's definitely a throwback, but I like that.
Yeah, I like that too. I wrote a script with Alvaro Rodriguez, and we set it in the 60s for that specific reason, because it was a real twisty, turny kind of story with lots of secrets. And you just had to put it in a time where that still works, you know.
Yes. Well,
But
and I also think it's why people have become so like in love with the old British, you know, manor house dramas too,
right.
because it's like when, you know, people actually had to speak to each other and relationships were formed on like, you know,
Yeah.
the touch of a hand or
Yeah.
something. I
Yeah.
love all of that. No one will ever ask me to write anything like that, but I'm such a fan of that stuff.
Yeah. Yeah.
Uh,
Well, I read somewhere, I'm pretty sure I'm accurate, that you are drawn to morally ambiguous characters. I don't know where I saw, I think that popped up in something I was researching about you. Is that true? And if so, what's the allure? Or am I way
I don't
off?
I don't know that I've ever actually said that. I would think that I had another film that was made here in Texas a while ago now with it was called Exterminators with Amber Heard and Jennifer Coolidge and Heather Graham, and it's about women who kill men for money. And then like all the shorts I've directed also had a certain level of like killing and violence. So yeah, I mean, I definitely think um, when you grow up, I grew up in New York City. You grow up with a very diverse social circle.
Sure.
And so um, early on, personally, I was exposed to people for whom violence is not a bad thing and is actually their business.
Sure.
So, in fact, the pilot I just wrote is about a woman who inherits her father's loan sharking business. Like there is
Oh, that's interesting.
pretty much in everything I write, there's a certain element of like crime. And I don't know that they're so morally ambiguous as they are just characters doing the best they can
They
in
have
the
a
situation they're given.
they have a totally different moral code.
Yeah. But
Yeah.
they have a code and
Yeah.
they have rules. Like I think, you know, in Eighth Day, Jeremiah, Mustafa Speaks character. I mean, he's very clear. There are rules, and you live and play by those rules.
Right.
And Darren Mann's character is a man who has no rules. So,
And how
yeah.
did you find Darren? He's like we were chatting before
Uh,
the show. I'm a big fan. He's a great actor. How did you get him involved?
Darren was actually a suggestion of our casting director Jennifer Cooper. I had seen I live in New Zealand like 4 months a year, and I had seen Phoebe Tonkin in a limited series a few years back when I was in New Zealand, and I was like, who is that girl? So I knew we wanted Phoebe, so that was kind of easy. But then Elvis was like such a specific character. And so Jennifer Cooper sent us over some great ideas, and she, you know, really said, like, you got to check out this kid, Darren Mann. And to be fair, I hadn't seen 1923 at that point. I don't even know if it had come out yet, to be honest. So, um, but there was something about his look. Like, Darren really has a babyish face. Um, and one of the things I love about the movie is watching kind of his transformation because he starts out really in a way that I never expected. That was not the way the character was written.
Is that right? Interesting.
He starts out kind of like the baby face and up for anything, and by the end, as you know, his whole like his face in the last 10 minutes of the movie to me is just everything. Like it's just all here what has happened to him, and I loved that. I loved that. And the first time we ever spoke, he told me about how he had grown up in Canada playing like junior hockey. And Darren is not a very tall, you know, big guy, but that how he had to go out on the ice every time and prove himself.
Oh wow.
And I loved that about him. I think he
Yeah.
brought so much of his own personal experience to the part. And as the writer, you love hearing that. So yeah. No, but Darren was great. And it's so amazing that his career has just blown up as 1923 has become so successful.
Yeah.
And Mustafa Speaks is in Landman. So we're laughing that we have kind of the Taylor Sheridan cast.
That's true. Well, what's your background? How did you get involved in storytelling and writing and
I
so
went to
forth?
film school. Like I grew up in New York City. I went to Columbia undergrad, and There was no film major then. So I got a degree from Barnard in program in the arts and mostly wrote plays, and then really wanted to be in film. And so they had a master's program in film. And it was a great program. I mean, Lisa Choldenko came out of that program, Kim Pierce, Adam Davidson, all these really amazing directors, Courtney Hunt, who did Frozen River. Like a lot of my fellow classmates have had really amazing careers. Some have been Oscar nominated or directed things that were Oscar nominated. So it was a great time to be in film school. And we had all kind of Eastern, Milos Forman was the chairman of the department, and we had an entire kind of Eastern block of professors who,
Interesting.
yeah, like Wojtek Yasny, like, and they'd grown up under communism and had this real passion for storytelling. And my actual screenwriting mentor, Walter Bernstein, was one of the screenwriters that was blacklisted in the 50s.
Interesting.
So there were a lot of men, mostly men, standing around kind of being very passionate about storytelling. And I couldn't help but kind of ingest it. And my high school English teacher was Frank McCourt. So I felt like I'd gone from one environment with this kind of brilliant Pulitzer Prize winning novelist to a new environment of these really amazing storytellers who were just really passionate about like the word.
And
And that was that.
did you write as a kid? Were you interested in plays and writing as a, yeah. So you were,
I would write like my mom would. I'm an only child, and so my parents had a lot of time on their hands, and so I would like tell my parents a story, and I would draw the pictures, and my mom would type it up, and then she put it on construction paper and sew it together and
oh,
make
how
like a book.
cool.
Yeah.
So when do I get when do I get to see one of those?
Oh my gosh. You know what happens? I don't know how old your parents are, but like they hit an age where they just want you to get all your crap out of their house
Yeah.
and they move somewhere. So of course, my parents being New Yorkers moved to Florida. And so there was the big purge, and it was amazing the things my mom had held on to.
Wow.
But yeah, I don't know where those are, but
What
yeah, they
what
would do things like that.
what was your first story? Do you remember?
I think I know that I told a teacher that I had five brothers and sisters, and they were like all the names of our pets. And my mom came up to school for like the first parent teacher conference, and the teacher said, "Oh, I have to say you look so young uh, to have six children." My mom was like, "What are you talking about? Suzanne's an only child." And they were like, "Oh." And so, but
Future
yeah, my
future
parents just rolled
filmmaker.
with it. My dad was like, "Yeah, whatever. She should tell stories." I
That's
think they're
funny.
very happy now that I make a living out of it, at least, and I'm not in jail.
So, with regard to writing, what's your preferred style? Are you an outliner? Do you do treatments? How detailed do you? Because I've talked to writers who are very structured, and I've talked to some that it's more like journaling, and they're
Hmm.
just trying to figure out as they go. Although they do have some type of outline. What's your process?
It depends. If I've been hired to write something, then I definitely do like a two-page treatment of just what I think the story will be. And then out of that, I do like an outline and then maybe even more of a step outline. But that's usually because I'm serving someone else's needs. Like they want to see it as it unfolds, kind of thing, or there's a collaboration going on. But when it's just my own idea, I will just, one of the things I do when I live in New Zealand is I go to I do a writer's residency and I sit on the side of a mountain and I just bang out a script in like a month. Like I have the idea and it sits in my head, and then I pitch it to a friend and I record it, and then I take that transcription and that's my treatment. And then I just start breaking it down and filling in scenes as I go. But I can almost always bang out a first draft that's like 75 pages, and then I go back and add in.
Are you drawn to the characters first or the situation?
The
Are you,
situation,
yeah, so you're more
the
plot driven.
situation,
Yeah.
for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was one thing I think they really drilled into our heads at Columbia, or at least that's certainly my takeaway was, and then what happens, and then what happens, and then what happens. Because there was a time when they told movies without any dialogue, and it was all just about facial expression and what was happening. So I remember distinctly an exercise, I think it was in brilliant filmmaker Ed Levy, where you wrote a 5-page scene and then you had to distill it down to 2 pages and then you had to distill it down to 1 page and then half a page and then just one like slug line and one action and that was it.
Oh,
And it
that's interesting.
really, yeah, it was really helpful. And I do that even now sometimes. Or like I mentor a lot of young people. I've taught at UT, University of Texas at Austin, and at Fordham and the School of Visual Arts back in New York. And I do that exercise with my students always like, what is happening in this scene? What your assignment is take that 6-page scene and bring it back to me 1.5 pages just to see if they can understand what's really happening.
So you're trying to distill the scene, the 6 pages, down to the one beat that is moving the story forward. Is that what you mean? Or
Just to look at it. It doesn't mean that the final product is going to be just this one thing, but
gotcha.
it just teaches you a way of examining your story. My experience when I mentor seniors or college seniors on their final projects, the scripts are never too short. They're always incredibly long. And so it's like, how do you figure out what's going on in a scene, what's necessary, what's already been said, and a way to look at it, the information in the scene, is to just keep distilling it down, 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 down. And if what you distill it down to is an idea or a thought or a word that or an idea that's already been given to you in an earlier scene, you don't need the scene
Right, right, right.
at all.
I was going to ask you about that. I'll make this kind of a two-parter. Since you're actually getting your films made, do you do a pass on practical things like, do we really need this location? Or how can I take these two locations and make it one location? Do you do that kind of thing?
I think you have to. I mean, I um most of the stuff I've written, I've been fortunate enough that they've allowed me to participate in some way, shape, or form. But like particularly with Eighth Day, the movie was set in Texas, and at the last minute, we had to. Texas didn't have any money in their incentive program. They do
Right.
now, thank goodness. And Alex and I are going to make more movies here, but at the time they didn't, and so we had to shoot it in New Mexico. And so we flew to New Mexico uh, and we hired like a location guy over the phone and flew to New Mexico, met him, and he took us to all these little towns. And once we kind of got the lay of the land, we sat in the hotel bar that night and just went through the entire script. Because also we had the WGA strike was like breathing down our neck. And so we just went through every scene. And I remember we were just like, no, we can't do this. Like this, we can't do. Like we can keep the information. We just have to put it somewhere else. And I want to say we turned it from 114 pages in that one session. We went from 114 pages, 113 down to like 96.
Wow. And
I
do
know, and I felt every cut, but yeah, I mean, once you get in a physical, or like Exterminators, the one with Heather Graham and Jennifer Coolidge, it was originally set in New York. It was a very vertical movie where characters were always moving in the shadow of buildings. We ended up shooting it in downtown Austin, which is a very, at the time, low city. So there are no shadows.
right.
And it just completely changed the whole, it went from being a vertical movie to a horizontal movie. And we just had to make all these changes to accommodate that again at the last minute. So yeah, you have to be able to roll with it, especially when it comes to locations.
Have you ever made a change that, how can I put this? All the changes, obviously you're trying to make the script better. Were you ever forced to make a change because of budget or locations or whatever that you suddenly went, oh, this is way better than I expected because I didn't think I needed that change. Does that make sense? Like combining a location. Let's say you lost a location and you had to scramble to get something else, but it ended up making that scene better. Does that make sense? Like a happy
I mean,
accident.
yeah, yes. And then there's been the reverse of that too. Like, but again, it's like by the time you're actually on set and you're shooting, especially if you're attached as the producer, at that point you just want to get the movie made.
Right.
Like there, and especially on Eighth Day, the writer's strike started May 1st. We started shooting a few days after. And so there was like a whole big thing. Like the writer went home. No one could ever ask me a question about the
Oh,
script
wow.
like that. Yeah, I mean, it was very, excuse me, clear. Like I was only on set as a producer. If you had a producer question, great. If, the porta potty wasn't working, I'm your girl. But like, yeah, we couldn't talk about the script at all. And so we just had to kind of wing it as we went along. But yeah, you just want the movie to get made, and you
Right.
just want to. It's. I always say there's a draft that exists, which is my draft. Is the story I want to
Right.
tell in the way I want to tell it. Um, I will say I have written things where I was just one in a long line of writers. Um, and I have gone to the premiere of that movie and did not recognize it. Like on the
Wow.
screen, it had changed so much, but there were, all of these people had worked on it. Um, but in most cases, I'm just so happy that the movie's getting made, and it's now become the director's vision and the actor's vision, and in some cases the DP's vision. So everyone else is putting their stamp on it, but there always exists the draft I wrote for me.
Right. Well, before we wrap up, how can people follow your career? How can they learn more about the Eighth Day and follow all the new stuff you're working on?
Well, I my Insta is Flatiron Pictures. And that's really it. I just am always posting like what's going on with all my different projects on that. And that's really it. But if people want to see the Eighth Day, it's playing right now on Amazon, Apple TV Plus, Fandango at home, and Google Play. So
Awesome.
they can rent it or they can buy it.
Well, very good. Well, Suzanne, it's been a pleasure chatting with you. I appreciate you taking the time to talk. And circle back when you have something fun going on, something new, circle back. We can chat some more.
I definitely will. There's always fun stuff going on here.
All right.
Thank
Well,
you so much.
you take care.
This episode is sponsored by Gemini Crown Tech, owned and operated by Stephanie Moore and Stephanie Harrison. We at Gemini Crown Tech have covered all your production management needs with our proprietary software. Please visit our website at www.geminicrowntech.com and use the code FMP for Filmmaker Mixer podcast listeners, so we know how you heard about us.
Thank you for listening to the Filmmaker Mixer podcast, a podcast created and hosted by filmmakers Jeff Stolen and Andrew Lamping and produced by Melody Lopez.
Our theme song was composed by Stephen D. Bennett.
Make sure to follow or subscribe on whatever platform you're listening to us on, and stay tuned for future episodes.